boy who tried to drown himself. A child stood beside a bathtub staring into the water like it held a way out. He had no arms, no legs. And at just 10 years old, he had no reason left to keep going. The bullying, the stares, the crushing silence of being different. He believed his life had no value. So he leaned forward, hoping the water would silence everything. That boy was Nick Vujicic, and he didn't die that day. Not because someone pulled him out, but because something deeper stirred inside him. Not hope, not faith, just a single bitter truth. If I don't fight, I'll disappear. He survived not by pretending things were okay, but by embracing the pain, by challenging the voice that told him he was worthless, and by building a purpose from the very thing that almost destroyed him. Today he stands on stages around the world, not with arms or legs, but with a voice that moves millions. That's not motivation. That's war, a war against self-doubt, fear, and weakness. And he won. This isn't just his story, this is your call. Because inside you there's a battlefield too, and what rises from it is something the world cannot break. The collapse is not the end, it's the beginning. Before you become unstoppable, you must understand this. You will break, not once, but many times. Your heart will shatter, your confidence will vanish, and your mind will beg for escape. That's not failure. That's the moment transformation begins. Viktor Frankl wrote his theory inside a Nazi death camp. He had every reason to give up. His family murdered, his future erased, his body starved and beaten. But he didn't just survive. He created a new kind of psychology from inside that horror. He discovered something most people never will. That meaning is stronger than pain. The ones who died weren't the weakest physically. They were the ones who believed there was no point left. And this is where the journey begins, not in triumph, but in devastation. That moment when you think it's over is when your real self begins to take shape. Not the self society told you to be, but the self forged in fire. People talk about finding themselves when they're on vacation or exploring something new. But Frankl found himself in a place designed to erase identity. That's the paradox. Sometimes you meet your most authentic self not in freedom but in captivity. When everything is stripped away, what remains is what's real. Now take that truth and combine it with Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire but lived as a student of control. Every morning he reminded himself, you will be lied to, betrayed, insulted, tested. And he trained his mind not to react. Because the world doesn't break you. Your reaction to the world does. He knew that being powerful wasn't about control over others, it was about control over self. Most people wait for the storm to pass before they move. But Marcus prepared his mind while it rained. Frankl made meaning while it burned. And you? You need to stop waiting for a perfect moment to start becoming someone powerful. The collapse is not your ending. It is your origin story. The pain is not a curse. It is the classroom. And the discomfort is not your signal to retreat. It's your invitation to rise. You must learn to stand while bleeding, to think while hurting, to move while confused, because unstoppable people aren't healed. They're committed despite the damage. So when your life feels like it's falling apart, you must decide, will you wait for the pain to pass, or will you build meaning from the wreckage? Because that's where your unstoppable self is born, not after the pain, but inside it. Pain is inevitable, but silence is what kills you. Most people believe suffering is the enemy, but that's a lie. Pain sharpens you, pain speaks, pain tells you where you're weak, where you're afraid, where you've avoided the truth. It screams at you to wake up. But silence is the moment you stop listening, the moment you surrender. Viktor Frankl saw it up close. In the concentration camps, prisoners were subjected to unthinkable cruelty. But the ones who didn't survive weren't always the sick or frail. Often they were the ones who stopped speaking to themselves. They gave up the internal dialogue. They stopped asking why. They stopped imagining a future. That silence, emotional, spiritual, mental, is what ended them. He wrote, when a man cannot find meaning, he numbs himself with despair. That's not just a quote. It's a warning. If you don't define your pain, it will define you. Now think about your own life. When you're struggling, what's your instinct? Most people shut down. They isolate. They say nothing. They scroll. They distract. They suppress. That is not healing. That is decay. The mind needs conversation, even if it's with yourself. especially with yourself. Frankl and Aurelius both taught that the moment you speak into your suffering, you weaken it, not by pretending to be okay, but by asking, what is this pain trying to teach me? What belief does it challenge? What lie does it expose? The people who become unstoppable are not the ones who avoid suffering. They are the ones who turn suffering into a furnace of growth. They don't let silence bury them. They use words like weapons. They shape their narrative, even in horror. Think of Nelson Mandela in prison for 27 years. He memorized poems, he reflected. He didn't go silent. He built his mental fortress word by word. Because silence in pain leads to spiritual death. But conversation, raw, honest, brutal conversation, leads to evolution. You need to start talking to yourself like someone who matters. No more pity, no more hiding. Speak into your suffering. Give it meaning. Don't numb it, name it. If you feel broken, don't wait to feel whole. Move anyway, speak anyway, fight anyway. The future doesn't care how you feel today, but your actions will shape who you become tomorrow. The world will hand you reasons to shut up, to sit down, to accept your place in silence. But you don't owe the world that. You owe yourself something louder, something real. So next time it hurts, don't go silent. Go deeper. There's a storm inside you. Sometimes it looks like rage. Sometimes it looks like shame. Sometimes it looks like the need to tear down everything you've built just to see if anyone would care. That's not weakness. That's power that hasn't been understood. Viktor Frankl said, in between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose. That space is your battlefield. And your fire, the part of you that wants to destroy, to scream, to run, that fire lives there too. Most people avoid it. But you're going to learn how to own it. Carl Jung called this force the shadow, the repressed, the denied, the unloved parts of yourself. Marcus Aurelius saw it in nature, the chaos of emotion, the urges that rise unbidden. He didn't fight them with denial, he observed them with discipline. He journaled not to escape, but to contain, to shape, to command. Your fire isn't the problem, it's the forge. If you keep pretending to be fine, if you keep pushing down your fury, your grief, your hunger, you don't eliminate them, you just turn them against yourself. And that's why most people stay stuck. They're not weak, they're just split. Frankl had every reason to become bitter, to hate, but instead of letting his rage rot him, he used it as momentum. He turned his suffering into philosophy. He gave his pain a name and then transformed it into something that could heal others. You feel that chaos in you because you were never taught how to wield it. You were told to be nice, to calm down, to shrink. But power doesn't come from shrinking. It comes from expansion, from owning the parts of you that others told you were too much. To become unstoppable, you must stand inside the storm of your own mind and refuse to flinch. You must say, I see you. I know what you want, but I choose something higher. And that choice, that's how power begins. Don't try to be calm. Be in control. Don't fake peace. Forge clarity. Let your fire rage, but inside walls you built with discipline, purpose, and vision. You're not meant to be tame. You're meant to be trained. The world wants you distracted, outraged, always reacting. You're rewarded for how fast you can respond, how loud you can argue, how emotionally charged you can be. But here's the truth. If the world can control your emotions, it can control your destiny. That's why the next step in becoming unstoppable isn't intensity. It's indifference. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal nearly 2,000 years ago, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In those words lies a practice most people never master, the ability to be unmoved by what they cannot control. Frankl witnessed this truth under unimaginable circumstances. His captors controlled everything, his food, his shelter, even whether he would live to see the next morning. But they could not touch his inner world. He refused to let their power invade his purpose. That refusal wasn't denial, it was defiance, a quiet, unshakable resistance. And you? Every day you hand your piece to the algorithm, to your boss's mood, to someone's text message, to a number on a scale or a comment on your post. This is not freedom, this is voluntary slavery. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to feel something about everything. That constant reaction is draining your willpower, your focus, your soul. Indifference doesn't mean apathy. It means clarity. It means learning to recognize what deserves your attention and what doesn't. When you're indifferent to chaos, you stop being manipulated. You stop wasting energy on things that don't change who you are. You stop needing the world to be fair, people to be kind, or circumstances to align. You simply remain. This is what unshakable looks like. Someone insults you and you smile, not because you're unaffected, but because you've already decided their words don't belong inside you. You lose something important and you adjust, not because you're heartless, but because your identity isn't tied to outcomes. You're betrayed, and instead of falling apart, you observe, not because you don't care, but because you value your response more than your rage. This level of discipline is rare, but it's not impossible. It takes practice. It takes mental rituals. It takes writing your thoughts down every day and watching which ones control you. It takes catching your reactions in the moment and choosing not to feed them. If your mind is your kingdom, then chaos is the invader. And every time you react emotionally to what doesn't matter, you surrender territory. But when you master indifference, you expand your rule. You grow your influence not by controlling others, but by mastering yourself. The world will keep testing you. It will throw noise, insult, temptation, pressure. But the ones who rise aren't the loudest. They're the calmest. Be the calmest in the storm, and the storm becomes irrelevant. Every person carries a cage inside them. It's not made of iron bars or concrete walls. It's made of stories. Stories about what you're allowed to be, what you're worth, what you can or cannot survive. And most terrifying of all, most people never question those stories. They just live inside the cage thinking it's the world. Viktor Frankl lived through one of the most literal and brutal cages ever created, Auschwitz. But while his body was locked behind fences and guards, his mind refused to be caged. He began noticing something. The difference between those who survived and those who didn't often came down to one thing: belief. The ones who believed they still had purpose, no matter how small, were the ones who kept breathing. Those who surrendered to meaninglessness collapsed. And Marcus Aurelius, though he ruled an empire, also recognized the invisible cage. He saw it in desire, in praise, in attachment to legacy or public approval. "It is not death that a man should fear," he wrote, "but he should fear never beginning to live." What's stopping you from beginning to live? Is it fear of failure? Is it shame? Is it the voice that says you're too broken, too behind, too late? That's the cage. It's made of repetition. Old voices from childhood, failed dreams, patterns that have wrapped around your mind like vines. And here's the brutal truth. No one's coming to open that cage for you. You have to rebuild the wiring yourself. Frankl's therapy, logotherapy, was built on the belief that life has meaning under all conditions, even the worst ones. You don't wait for your life to get better to find meaning. You create meaning by deciding who you are in the middle of the mess. That's how you begin to rewire. And Marcus? He trained his mind like a soldier. Every morning he asked, "What is in my control? What is not?" Then he acted only on the former. That one habit alone is a master key to any cage. To stop fighting the uncontrollable and start mastering the internal. You must do the same. That voice in your head that says you're not enough, it's just an old loop. Someone else put it there. But you keep pressing play. And every time you believe it without question, you reinforce the bars. But the second you challenge it, not with toxic positivity, but with truth, you loosen the lock. Say it out loud. That belief is not mine anymore. You've been acting like you need permission to change, like you need someone to say, "Now you're worthy, now you're strong, now you're ready." But no one will. That's the trick, that's the trap. You must give yourself the permission slip. You must walk out of the cage even if you built it yourself. This doesn't happen in one day. It happens through daily defiance, small actions that contradict your old story. You get up when the voice says stay down. You speak when the fear says stay silent. You act when the past says you've failed before. And each time you do, the wiring changes, the cage starts to melt. And you don't need perfect clarity, you don't need a grand vision. You just need to ask yourself one question every day. What would a free person do next? Then do that. You weren't born to be safe. You were born to shape something, yourself first, then the world. Rewiring is painful. It feels fake at first, but so did the cage when you first entered it. Now it feels familiar, not because it's right, but because it's been repeated. Flip the script. Build repetition in the opposite direction. That's what unstoppable people do. They don't accept the story. They rewrite it. So today, choose a new sentence. Choose a new action. And don't wait for belief to show up first. Action creates belief, not the other way around. There's a moment you'll face if you haven't already. It's not dramatic, it's not public, it won't come with music or applause, but it will define everything. It's the quiet, private second where something inside you whispers, maybe I can be more. And then another voice, one you've heard 1,000 times, fires back. Who do you think you are? That's the battle. Not the world, not the struggle. It's that voice. And becoming unstoppable begins when you stop listening to it. Viktor Frankl once wrote, "The last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." You can take everything from a man, his health, his freedom, his dignity, but you cannot take his ability to decide who he will be in response to it all. It's the freedom you still have, even now. And Marcus Aurelius? He didn't wait for the world to approve his strength. He reminded himself daily that life owed him nothing. That virtue, strength, resilience, reason, had to be practiced even in hell. Especially in hell, no one's going to walk up to you and say, "You're unstoppable now, you're worthy now, you've suffered enough, grown enough, proved enough." That moment never comes, you must rise anyway. The world will tell you to wait. Wait until you're more healed, more qualified, more certain, but the truth? You rise by rising. The lie is that you need permission. From your parents, from your past, from your pain. But none of that can define what you become next. You want to know what unstoppable really means? It doesn't mean perfect. It means you move forward even when doubt screams in your ears. It means you write when no one reads. You show up when no one claps. You stand tall when no one stands beside you. Frankl taught us that meaning isn't found, it's made. And Aurelius showed us that peace isn't granted, it's practiced. Unstoppable people don't wait to feel inspired, they become disciplined. They stop chasing motivation and start building identity. So stop thinking about who you've been. Stop replaying your worst moments like they're tattoos. That's not your script anymore. Your story is unwritten from this second forward, and you are the only one who can write it. Every time you show up for yourself, you shift the trajectory of your life. Every small act of defiance, getting up, speaking truth, controlling your emotions, finishing what you start. These aren't habits. They're rebellion. And over time, they become who you are. You're not broken. You're building. You're not late. You're arriving. You're not lost. You're becoming. The cage is open now. The fire is yours to aim. The silence has been broken. The story is yours to write. Rise without permission. Act without apology. Speak without shame. Because if you're waiting for the right moment to become unstoppable, you've already missed it. The right moment was the moment you decided you're done waiting. Now go prove it.